Ilya's ven drifted through the empty corridors of Tarsai's station, like a man who had forgotten why he ever cared about anything beyond a hot cup of coffee, and the faint thrill of sarcasm. The station hung in orbit around a dead moon, its hull pockmarked by centuries of neglect and the occasional wayward meteor. Systems that should have hummed with activity instead whistled, squeaked, and groaned, as if the station itself were trying to tell him that time was a joke, and he had been the punchline. He muttered something about how the Galactic fleet could organize a tea party with less paperwork than it took to launch a shuttle, and the faint echo of his voice bounced back at him like a cosmic mirror, slightly distorted and judgmental. He remembered her as clearly as the smell of ozone after a lightning storm. Kalyra, the general with long, elegant ears that curved like twin crescents over her shoulders, the kind of ears that made you think the universe had sneezed out art. She had been fearless, brilliant, and terrifyingly funny, often sending him quips mid-battle like, "Try not to look too surprised when I vaporize your fleet," delivered with a grin that made the worst of human errors seem like children playing with spark pistols. When the Empire executed her, or so they said, 6 centuries ago, it was meant to be a punctuation mark at the end of a chaotic sentence, the kind of punctuation that erased all memory of what had come before. Ilya's tapped at a console buried beneath dust and debris. Lights flickered like lazy fireflies as he coaxed the ancient system to life. Hidden deep in the archives, behind layers of encryption that smelled of old paranoia and bureaucratic overconfidence, he found her messages. Not the public proclamations the Empire had carefully allowed to survive, but private transmissions. Jokes about misbehaving drones, complaints about the taste of space rations, observations about star systems that moved in patterns resembling drunken dancers. And hints that something in the so-called 6th century piece was a lie, a carefully staged illusion to keep humans complacent and aliens simmering in silence. Ilya sipped a holographic coffee that insisted on overheating, muttering, "Great. Even the coffee wants to kill me slowly." Every recovered file seemed to taunt him. Kalyra had left breadcrumbs, and each breadcrumb was coded in both strategy and mischief. Some were instructions for coded alliances. Some were practical jokes disguised as military orders, like deploying holographic decoys shaped like kittens in battle formations to confuse enemy scanners. Ilya's laughed at one particularly absurd note, nearly spilling his coffee on a console that had survived more years than he cared to count. "Of course," he said aloud. "Leave the galaxy in chaos and send the kittens." The deeper he dug, the stranger things became. Automated maintenance units, designed to patrol the station and maintain order, had begun following him with an almost human curiosity. Their sensors clicked and whirred, as if amused by his attempts to hack into systems long thought dead. One unit, a spherical drone with 3 spinning ocular lenses, projected a hologram of a stick figure in a ridiculous hat labeled Galactic Bureaucrat of the Year, which seemed both judgmental and endearing. Ilya's grumbled, "I did not consent to being mocked by a robot with better comedic timing than me." Among the archives, he discovered references to alien enclaves hidden across the galaxy, groups who had kept Kalyra's memory alive. Some had been quietly observing human colonies, some running simulations of battles she had once commanded, always laughing at her jokes, always keeping her strategies alive. He realized that her ears, those long crescent moons of flesh, weren't just ornamental. They were sophisticated biological receivers, capable of decoding alien communications far faster than any AI. Kalyra had been not just a general, but a living bridge between species, a trickster genius who understood that humor could be as lethal as plasma fire when used correctly. Ilya's paused at a console displaying a galaxy map, blinking with dormant systems marked as compliant. He shook his head. "Compliant," he muttered, "or just asleep while the Empire sleeps with one eye open." He tapped a series of keys, cross-referencing Kalyra's notes with the positions of old fleets, and began to realize the chilling possibility. The Empire's peace had been a carefully orchestrated lie. No wonder the galaxy had been so quiet. It wasn't peace, it was a stage, and everyone had been acting their part in a play written by people who didn't even care about the jokes. A sudden hum ran through the station, as if the walls themselves were reacting to the secrets being unearthed. Ilya's glanced around, coffee in hand, and made a half-joke to the empty air. "Great! Now the station is judging me too." The hum intensified, lights flickered, and somewhere deep in the archives, a message blinked on a terminal that had never before responded. It was her signature, unmistakable even after centuries, K-Lyra, and it was followed by a single line, "I knew you'd find me eventually, Ven, don't spill the coffee this time." Elias laughed, a sound that echoed down the silent halls, half relief, half disbelief. He adjusted his coat, a relic that smelled faintly of burnt circuits and old missions, and muttered, "Well, K-Lyra, let's wake up the galaxy and maybe teach it to laugh while it's at it." The station seemed to sigh in agreement, sending another maintenance drone rolling past, this one projecting a holographic rubber chicken. Elias sighed and grinned. "I swear, every century I get older, the universe gets stranger and funnier." He didn't know how long he stood there, staring at the stars through the shattered observation dome, imagining fleets stirring after centuries of dormancy. Somewhere across the void, alien ears flicked in amusement, laughter ready to ignite a war, one joke at a time. He adjusted his coffee, tapped a console, and whispered, "Let's see how badly I can mess with the Empire before breakfast." The first ripple of a reckoning had begun, and somehow, in the middle of all the potential catastrophe, Elias found himself laughing. Elias Ven had always thought space travel was supposed to be lonely. Turns out, loneliness was optional if you had a penchant for annoying robots and questionable interstellar cuisine. He strapped into the cockpit of his aging starcruiser, the Lucky Misfire, whose engines groaned like a cat waking from a nap whenever he asked for hyperdrive. "I swear," he muttered to the console, "if you explode today, I'm blaming K-Lyra." The ship beeped back in a tone that might have been agreement or mild sarcasm. Elias wasn't sure which, and he wasn't about to ask. The coordinates led him to a moon in the Urandor system, a barren rock with more sand than sense, and a council of aliens who had apparently survived the galaxy's long peace by cultivating patience, peculiar humor, and a collective fondness for absurd hats. Elias had studied the archives carefully, and knew this was the place where remnants of K-Lyra's inner circle had hidden, pretending to be hermits while secretly keeping her legacy alive. The council greeted him with simultaneous bows and what looked like synchronized jazz hands. "I see the galaxy sends another human with a bad haircut and an overconfident sense of humor," one member said, their voice like metal scraping velvet. Elias tilted his head. "That's oddly specific for a first impression." Negotiations began, and Elias quickly discovered that even alien diplomacy had a sense of irony. Their leader, a gelatinous creature named Plith, insisted on communicating by bouncing holographic cubes, each cube representing a word or maybe a feeling or a thinly veiled insult. Elias ended up inventing a game called Cube Charades, which may have saved his life or ruined the dignity of everyone involved. It was hard to tell. Between dodging philosophical questions about the nature of interstellar etiquette and figuring out which cubes meant war fleet versus tea ceremony, he began to piece together K-Lyra's secret plan. She had designed an intricate network of enclaves that could awaken alien fleets dormant for centuries, like alarm clocks set by a trickster genius who found great joy in making everyone panic before coffee. The council shared rumors of K-Lyra's survival. She hadn't been executed. The Empire had faked it, a theater of control designed to lull humans into complacency while alien civilizations simmered quietly under surveillance. Elias felt a mixture of awe and irritation. 6 centuries of fake peace and no one even sent a postcard. He muttered. Plith blinked, a literal blink, and projected an image of K-Lyra's face, long ears twitching in amusement, overlaid with schematics of star systems and hidden warp corridors. Elias blinked back. "You really think I can follow this without falling asleep or breaking something?" he asked. The hologram winked. Elias decided that might count as encouragement. He discovered that K-Lyra's long ears weren't just for show. They were biological receivers capable of intercepting and decoding alien transmissions in ways that no AI could match. Her laughter, now legendary among both humans and aliens, had often been a strategic weapon. Mid-battle, she would relay coded instructions hidden in the tone and pitch of her voice, turning humor into a tactical advantage. Elias, remembering the time a drone mistook her joke about saucers shaped like pancakes for an attack command, smiled and shook his head. "I really hope no one tells Fleet Command about that," he said aloud, and the cubes quivered as if agreeing. The mission to awaken the galaxy was complicated by the Empire's dormant surveillance networks. Elias had to navigate a lattice of AI sentinels, some of which appeared friendly until he discovered their fondness for pranks. Fake distress calls, holographic walls that flipped him upside down, even a projection of his own reflection scolding him for being late. At one point, a drone followed him for an hour, projecting a hologram of a tiny marching band playing the Imperial anthem backward. Elias groaned. "I fought pirates, warlords, and star-eating anomalies," he said, "and I'm telling you this is the cruelest trick yet." Using Kelira's notes and his own improvisation, Elias transmitted coded messages across star systems, blending urgent war strategies with absurd jokes meant to alert allies without tipping off the Empire. A fleet of long-dormant alien ships responded to his signal, their lights blinking in sync like cosmic disco balls. One ship projected a hologram of Kelira wearing a ridiculous hat and saluting, her ears curling in amusement. Elias chuckled. "I hope someone writes a treaty about fashion sense after this war," he said, and the ship's lights blinked in what he decided was agreement. By the time he returned to his ship, Elias had gathered fragments of intelligence that suggested the Empire's control over human colonies was both fragile and laughably overconfident. Entire star systems had been pacified by threats and propaganda. Yet the truth Kelira had left encoded in laughter, misdirection, and strategy, could ignite a galaxy-wide reckoning. He realized that humor, memory, and subversive joy were as potent as plasma cannons when wielded wisely. Kelira had trusted him to awaken that spark, and he felt the weight of it pressing against his ribs like an old friend with bad timing. Elias adjusted his seat, watching holographic stars streak past as he plotted his next jump. Somewhere, hidden in the labyrinth of the galaxy, alien fleets were stirring, their long-eared spies twitching in anticipation. The Empire had built walls of silence and fear, but Elias and Kelira had left cracks, through laughter, through coded messages, through absurd decoys. "Let's see if they can handle a little chaos with a punchline," he said, grinning. The lucky misfire lurched into hyperdrive, carrying a human man, a galaxy's worth of secrets, and a reckless sense of humor toward a war that had been waiting centuries to wake. Elias Venn stared out at the shimmering expanse of the Solari Rift, a corridor of hyperspace that twisted like a cosmic river, and realized that after 6 centuries of fabricated peace, the galaxy was finally waking up. Alien fleets long dormant blinked into life, their long-eared officers communicating with rapid signals that made human eyes ache if you stared too long. He adjusted the controls of the Asterisk Lucky Misfire, whose engines protested as if they had a mind of their own, and muttered, "All right, everyone, try not to blow up before breakfast." The ship beeped in something suspiciously like laughter. The first wave of awakened systems was chaotic, glorious, and absurd. Entire fleets had been reprogrammed to mimic Kelira's sense of humor. One vessel projected holographic pancakes over its hull, sending enemy surveillance bots into hours of confusion, while alien admirals debated whether they were under attack or invited to a breakfast buffet. Elias couldn't help but chuckle. "She really thought of everything, didn't she?" he said, remembering her ears twitching as she explained the concept of strategic misdirection with a grin that could disarm the deadliest of commanders. Elias coordinated with the scattered remnants of Kelira's enclaves, their communications a mix of technical brilliance and absurdity. One faction transmitted battle plans encoded as riddles, forcing human and alien analysts to solve puzzles mid-conflict. Elias had never appreciated riddles until now. "Turns out, solving a riddle can save a fleet," he admitted to himself, adjusting a console that refused to stay upright. Somewhere, a drone projected a holographic rubber chicken saluting him, and Elias accepted it as a fair tribute. As the first skirmishes broke out, the Empire's forces, complacent for centuries, struggled to respond. Their AIs were caught in loops of conflicting directives, some declaring prepare for peace talks, while others insisted, attack now, but politely. Entire battalions froze mid-stride when a projection of Kelira's hologram appeared, ears flicking in amusement, delivering a one-liner about bureaucratic incompetence that resonated across comms. Elias grinned, tapping into the fleet's frequency. "I knew leaving cat-shaped decoys in your archives would pay off someday," he joked, and somewhere in hyperspace, an alien captain laughed so hard he accidentally engaged warp thrusters backward. Amid the chaos, Elias realized that Kelira had been guiding him not only to awaken the galaxy, but to awaken himself. He had entered this mission as a soldier, a survivor, someone who relied on grit and caution. Now he found himself improvising, strategizing, and laughing in equal measure. Humor had become a weapon, observation a shield, and trust, sometimes in the absurd, his compass. He navigated fleets through ambushes, negotiated with aliens who spoke entirely in puns, and decoded hidden signals that would have left any ordinary officer dizzy. Elias had grown into a leader, one who understood that survival wasn't just about firing first or calculating trajectories. It was about reading the galaxy itself, in all its quirks and chaos. The Empire scrambled to mount a response, but every counterattack seemed to unravel under the weight of Kelira's foresight. Systems they thought loyal revealed hidden fleets, commanders they considered cautious revealed eccentric cunning. Elias orchestrated the first combined human-alien assault in centuries, a fleet maneuver so intricate it resembled a choreographed dance more than war. Laser arrays traced arcs in the void that looked suspiciously like confetti. The Empire's flagship, a massive vessel shaped like a dull gray wedge, was temporarily blinded by a projection of Kelira performing an interpretive dance across its sensors. "Well," Elias said, sipping a coffee that somehow survived hyperspace, "I didn't see this in training manuals." By the time the dust settled, the Empire had fractured. Its leaders, caught between awe, frustration, and embarrassment, could no longer maintain their grip. Humans and aliens, formerly asleep under centuries of false peace, began to govern themselves again, cautiously, humor intact. Kelira, now revealed to have survived in a hidden system, appeared via encrypted hologram to address the galaxy. She thanked Elias with a playful grin, ears curling in amusement, and reminded everyone that laughter, memory, and ingenuity were as vital as fleets and weapons. Elias responded with a salute and a quip about not letting her holographic self win all the battles, and Kelira winked. Elias returned to the asterisk lucky misfire, alone but not lonely. He had started this journey chasing answers, chasing a ghost in the archives, and discovered something far more valuable. That leadership required more than strategy, that courage could be tempered with humor, and that even in the vast emptiness of space, connection mattered. He plotted a course for the nearest human colony, planning to help rebuild, advise, and occasionally prank the bureaucracy into sanity. A drone zipped past, projecting a tiny banner reading, "Best General Partner Ever Asterisk," and Elias laughed aloud. The galaxy, once lulled into silence, now hummed with activity. Stars twinkled like impatient witnesses to centuries of waiting. Fleets of humans and aliens sailed together, their communications alive with jokes, riddles, and strategies. Peace, real peace this time, had returned not through fear or coercion, but through understanding, collaboration, and the memory of a general with crescent-shaped ears who taught the galaxy to laugh while fighting for itself. Elias leaned back, letting the hum of the ship and the distant glow of hyperspace fill his senses. He realized the galaxy had changed, and so had he. The war had been rekindled, but this time it was not only about conquest. It was about choice, humor, and remembering the lessons of the past. With a final sip of coffee, he whispered to the void, "Well, Kelira, mission accomplished. Now, how about we see if anyone wants pancakes for dinner?" And for the first time in centuries, the galaxy seemed to smile.